Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special video brought to you by the Drinks Trust. My name is Gabe Cook. I'm the ciderologist. I'm a global cider expert, and the Drinks Trust have very kindly invited me to guest edit this month's newsletter. And I've taken the decision and the opportunity, rather than to write an article, to do an interview. As you can see, I'm joined by two very, very lovely people. This is Alice Churchward and Claire Isherwood, known to all of her friends as Ish. And they are the proprietors of the Real Owl Company. Now, given that I am a cider expert, obviously I needed to speak to some cider people. Al and Ish are old friends of mine, and they've been having a really significant impact upon UK cider over the last few years. So I wanted to utilize this opportunity to have a bit of a chat on their insight on cider, on the hospitality trade, on training, and all things wonderful fermentation. So Al, Ish, welcome to our little chat. Thanks for joining me. Could you tell everybody a little bit more about who you are and what is the Real Owl Company?
Shall I start?
Hi there.
Thanks for having us, Gabe. Happy to be here. The Real Owl Company started with Real Ale, and my name is Al, hence why we thought the Real Owl Company, which was kind of conjured up over a couple of white wines back in 2012. And it's just kind of stuck. I kind of despise the name now because we get called the Real Ale Company, the Real Owl Company, and various other various other names which aren't quite right. But anyway, here we are, Real Owl. And it's comprised of Ish, my partner, business partner and life partner, and myself. And we're based in Walthamstow, London. We are a distribution business. We own our own brand, which is called Crafty Apple. We represent and sell products from a range of other small batch cider makers based in and around the UK. And we also have a tap room as well, which is open Friday through Sunday in Walthamstow. There's about 5 or 6 of us full-time staff members, and we love it. Highs and lows, peaks and troughs.
And I suppose the question is, why cider? Because as we'll probably discuss, cider isn't, especially at the smaller craft end of the spectrum, it's something that's growing, but it's still, I think you'll probably tell me, quite a hard sell. So why have you chosen the path of the fermented apple rather than beers, wines, or spirits?
Because I'm a foolish woman.
Well, it did start with ale initially, hence the name.
It did. Well, I'm from Herefordshire originally, although now we live in London, as I mentioned. But it was actually my dad, wise old owl that he is. He sort of set me on the path of Real Ale due to a business interest that he has back home. And when I realised I was never going to make enough money to survive just off selling cask beer that wasn't brewed in London, he said, "Okay, why don't you diversify? Herefordshire has a lot of apples and cider makers. Why don't you see if the Londoners want some cider?" And I was like, "Ugh, cider's gross." And then was like, "But I need to make some money and I need to create a stable business. So let's give it a go." And 12 years on, here we are. A few more wrinkles and sleepless nights, but the what's the saying? The screw is starting to turn for sure. So yeah, I think that's probably accurate.
Definitely. I think the demand definitely has increased over the years, hence why we have continued. And yeah, especially in London, the demand is really, really high, and outside of London as well, which we're hoping to stretch the business out to eventually when we have time. And yeah, positive, really, really positive. We're seeing new customers every week. More people are talking about it. More people are seeing it as a cool thing to drink rather than something that they've drunk when they were 16 around the back of a friend's shed, hiding from parents. So yeah, all round really positive and just really, and a really exciting industry to work in.
It's the same old tropes and stories that are pulled out every single time when you say the word cider to people. There's often a slight rolling of the eyes or a sharp intake of breath. oh, I don't drink cider because I drank too much behind the sheds, because it's too sweet, or I only drink it in the summer, never drink it in the winter. Why would you do that? Or it's rough old scrumpy. There are lots and lots of challenging and negative preconceptions against a drink that represents an entire category. Sure, there are people who might have had a bad experience on beer or wine or a particular type of those beverages, but they don't seem to get the labeling as being an entire category of drink that they would never touch again. I wonder what it is about cider that gives this unfortunately sort of challenging label. Maybe it is because it's often the first alcoholic beverage that people try, that magic combination there are of some ciders of high alcohol, big bottle, and low price point. That's one of the challenges associated with cider. What do you think?
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I think farm gate sales probably didn't help, where it was a bit sort of rock up, and that hairy bloke that lives lives next to the cider press.
He lives in the orchard. Here he is. You see,
yeah.
The orchard.
Smells a bit like manure. You just go along, take a jerry can, and he'll fill it up for you, and it'll be minimum 12%, and then you sort of just sit around drinking. And I think with some fairly poor marketing that kind of went along with that jerry can of 8%, pretty rough scrumpy, the overall package wasn't kind of the sort of thing that we see these days. It's taken a lot of work to change its reputation, its preconceptions, but I mean, it's getting there, but there's still a fair way to go. I
think with the beer culture booming in the last sort of 5-10 years, I think almost has overshadowed the cider industry somewhat. So even if you did have those interesting brands emerging, they were probably hidden sort of underneath the beer branding, especially in bottle shops and tap rooms. Whereas now it's definitely coming more to.
Yeah, I would agree with that, definitely. I think kind of pre-COVID, there was so much like the beer buzz was so loud and so overpowering and overwhelming. All anybody cared about was like the next big IPA that was coming out of the west coast of America. And oh my God, Verdant have brewed a beer and put it into cask. Like it's only £180 for a 9-gallon cask, which is just like ludicrous. I love Verdant, by the way. This is, they are
big fans.
Absolutely beautiful beer. But it was just then very difficult for cider to have a voice amongst all of that kind of, that enthusiasm for a completely different category. And then sort of the spirits kind of category started coming forward as well, and then natural wine had a big go, and I think cider has just struggled to really get a foothold. It's needed a lot of help, and it's needed a lot of education as well, not just around how it tastes, but how it's presented and who it's presented by.
Sure. I mean, obviously this is you're on the front line, working with pubs and bars, delivering them with different pack formats. You've got the more sort of traditional still bag and box, and you've got kegs as well. Obviously, your enterprise has grown. You are a physical manifestation of some of the positive things that are happening with cider, but it's obviously still a challenge. The thing that craft beer was able to achieve was to convince the drink trade that it was worthwhile spending double the money on a keg of this very intensely flavored beer versus the slightly sort of lighter flavored or intensity of beer. And the consumers, they bought it and drunk it. How far on that journey are we with, more intensely flavored ciders that potentially have a higher juice content than more mainstream styles of cider? How are we in that kind of demand kind of bit? What do you see? What do you feel?
In terms of the flavored ciders specifically?
No, I suppose I mean craft ciders. How easy, or is it getting easier for you to sell into a pub a kegged cider which costs double what a Stowford Press or a Strongbow does? Not that there's anything wrong with those drinks; they're a really important part of the cider category. But
Yeah.
the craft cider to that more
Yeah.
mainstream?
So previously it was extremely difficult to nick a line off Aspel, Orchard Thieves, you know, one of the big boys, because more often than not, Heineken will have come in and offered to pay for a refurbished cellar or cellar improvement, cellar management, you know, whatever, written a check and said, look, we'll sort it out for you, but in return, you need to dedicate XYZ taps to us. And always, they will give them a cider, because it seemed to be the easy option, like the cheap option that no one cares about.
That's no priority.
Absolutely, no priority whatsoever. And that in the past has been such a difficult hurdle to overcome. However, definitely it has changed. And I would say almost since COVID, actually, people have started to just notice cider a little bit more. And as I mentioned, we have our own brand, Crafty Apple, which is a 4.5% session cider. It's absolutely beautiful, beautifully branded by my wife, and wonderfully created by our partner maker. And it's products like that that need to get into, they need to be experienced and enjoyed by customers to be able to see how important a small batch keg cider is versus one of the bigger guys. Yes, it is more expensive, but I do find GMs or general decision makers are willing to give up a little bit of margin in order to keep abreast with the competition, because actually it's fierce out there. And if you're seen to be pouring something that's a bit iffy, people aren't going to go there. You're going to lose out to your neighbour pub that's got the right stuff on. So
now,
yeah,
is that
steps?
Is that on the nature of the liquid? But you already touched on it. You know, your big involvement in the business is around marketing and branding and design, which has been such a critical element around craft beer in terms of reaching and communicating. Cider, smaller cider hasn't always been very good on that. A lot of tractors, a lot of rosy-cheeked men. Your approach to things are quite different from that storytelling narrative. How important do you think that is in terms of your business, but also maybe for craft cider in general, getting more appreciated in the trade?
Oh, it's massive. Absolutely. It's something can taste really nice, but if it's branded not very well, then you're not going to buy it. You do buy with your eyes. So I think, especially for us, having Crafty Apple in package as well, so we've got it in bottles and bringing cans out as well, which is exciting this year. Something for someone to look into a fridge and to really stand out at them, and to be modern, contemporary, you know, using on-trend colours. A lot of inspiration taken obviously from the beer industry, but I mean, I've got a design and sort of illustration background, so for me, that's where my sort of inspiration comes from. And I mean, everybody's doing such brilliant stuff at the moment in cider, and I think it's only going to get better the more cider makers join the industry. It's so vital. I think if a pub has a really amazing beer, portfolio of beers that are really well branded, as pretty much every single brewery is, especially the London ones. If you've got then a cider brand which isn't in keeping with that, it just doesn't look right, doesn't follow suit. So hopefully that's what we're trying to do, as other makers are trying to do as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, obviously, the Drinks Trust is a charity that helps people working within the hospitality trade. It's obviously a very tricky time for everybody working in or working with hospitality. What kind of trends or things are you observing that are challenging, or maybe to flip that, you know, are there any little rays of light which you can sort of see coming ahead that could be of benefit to people working in the industry?
We were chatting before, weren't we, about this, and we said it's very difficult to secure that kind of middle management position within the pubs. And I can't really speak for restaurants. We don't do so much for casual dining, but certainly pubs, tap rooms, you know, those sorts of venues that are quite busy and rely just on pure manpower, people to pull pints with a smile, clear tables. Such an important job, and it's so often underpaid. And with the cost of living pressures, even if somebody wants a long-term career in hospitality, maybe even just to pour pints for years on end, because it's really fun and it's a nice job to do, if it's in the right setting, but actually they don't have the chance to do that anymore because they can't survive. The wage that they're paid is not enough, and the bills they're expected to pay are far too high. So we are seeing huge gaps when we're going around visiting pubs, or perhaps when I'm having conversations with managers. They say, "Oh, Al, do you know anyone? Can you send them my way?" We went to our local cricket club the other day and we had an hour wait because there was one guy serving a line of 25 people. The taps were fobbing. He didn't know how to manage the situation at all because he had just been shoved into a position essentially because he had a pulse. And we see that happening quite a bit. I think
we have difficulties with our own venue and staffing. You're fine for a couple of months and then suddenly you lose 2 members of staff, and then it's back. Al and I are back behind the bar, which obviously we absolutely love doing. But for us running a business, obviously working 7 days a week and having a baby, it's quite the juggle.
And I think like with that kind of middle section of hospitality, I think that people don't see it as a career, and I wish that they would. They see it as an opportunity to make a few quid so they can go traveling or kind of pursue their acting career. And that's why the turnover of that type of person, type of role is so high. And actually it's such an important job. It's more important even than the GM sometimes, who's paid 3 times more. And I think those sorts of people probably feel a bit undervalued and underpaid, and that's why they move on.
Definitely. I've done a bit of traveling and have lived abroad, and I know that you two have traveled fairly extensively as well. And to go to some places like in the USA, like in Australia or New Zealand, or in France, where people who work in hospitality from top to bottom, it is a valued trade, it's a valued industry. Get the feeling that there isn't always the respect and the reverence for the jobs, for the role, and maybe even for the people who kind of work in them. And so going to take quite a sort of systemic change and approach to valuing this industry in order for better wages, for better retention of quality people, etc. That's quite a big ask to try and change that, I suppose.
It's a hard job, working behind a bar, clearing tables, being pleasant, dealing with Joe Public, exactly. Especially when they've had a drink. Like, it's no mean feat. And I think, I agree. I think our staff deserve more. And for us at our venue, we really do try our very best to pay them properly. They get London living wage. They get training. They get perks, and they stay. So it works. They just need to be treated better.
Now, you already mentioned briefly your own tap room. Tell us a little bit more about what happens there and where it is, and if people are based in London or outside of London, how and when they should be coming and visiting.
So we have a lovely little tap room. We used to call it Trap. Actually, we've called it's the Real Al tap room, really. It's in Walthamstow in East London, and it's on a really busy industrial estate. Well, busy at the weekends anyway. We're in between 2 breweries, opposite a gin bar, and also there's a place called God's Own Junkyard, who are neon light specialists. So it's a really cool place to come up for the weekend or for the day and just go and have a drink in each of the venues. We just started a collective called the Ravenswood Collective, which you can follow us on Instagram. And that's part of all the venues on the estate, but also includes makers that work on the estate, and interior designers and builders. There's a car garage on there as well. So it's really about pulling everybody together to organise events all year round, really. So this weekend, for example, we've got a family day, so we've got a bouncy castle, we've got a silent disco going on, and then aside from that, we do lots and lots of DJ nights, which are fab. We do queer nights as well, and private hires, which are fantastic. So
and we also just did a feast with our friend. So she came and cooked on coals, which was really cool, wasn't it? The first time we've ever done food in the venue, but it was a real success. And yeah, crafty apple was flowing.
So the bar
now. Oh, sorry, please do carry on.
The bar itself, obviously predominantly cider. So we sell up to about 15 different bag-in boxes. And then we've got 5 beers on draft, and then our crafty apple, and then lots of stuff in cans and bottles as well. So good range, and cocktails.
Brilliant. So something for everybody.
Exactly.
You also are the host venue for the London Cider Club as well, which I believe meets. It's the last Thursday of every month.
Right,
You have a cider maker is invited down to give a bit of a talk and a tasting session. It's been going for a while now, hasn't it?
Yeah, how long was it? About a year?
9 months or 10 months?
Yeah, getting on for. Yeah, it's largely run actually by James, who works for us. He runs operations and logistics and has joined the business about 5 years ago, knowing nothing about cider at all. And he's sort of really developed into the role and got a real, I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think a fondness for cider. He works with Alison, who runs the Hop in Hornchurch, which is a very popular micro pub. She's a really champions cider. So the two of them have kind of really done great things. And we've had all sorts of makers, haven't we?
Yeah.
In the space. And it draws a crowd, actually. Well, Tom Oliver draws a crowd.
Of course he does. The man, the legend, the godfather.
That one.
Sell out. Yeah. No, they all do really well. It's great. It's lovely to see.
Now you mentioned lovely James, who works for you, and Alison Taffs as well. As it happened, they are two people who have been undertaking some of the courses that I deliver. A slightly gratuitous plug here, sorry everybody. Run through the Beer and Cider Academy, a series of cider courses that end up with the final qualification of a pommelier. It's the equivalent of a cider sommelier. James and Ollie, your other employee, they're just one step away for completing. The courses, I would say, represent good value, but it is an investment that you have made there in those two individuals. Why do you think it's important to place such emphasis on putting these your people on these courses?
I think the most important thing, obviously, is for them just to have a better education on the making process. As a distributor, obviously, we don't get to go out to cider makers as often as we'd like, sat in our Walthamstow unit. So for the staff to be fully educated on the processes is absolutely vital, and also for their own knowledge. Yeah, exactly.
Knowledge base. I mean, both of them came to the business with a ton of enthusiasm, but absolutely no knowledge or understanding whatsoever. I mean, they're both beer drinkers. And actually every person that's ever approached us has always kind of come with an enthusiasm for beer or wine or something else that's not cider. So actually your kind of provision of that course has been really welcome for us, because Ish and I aren't in a position to be able to give them that breadth of knowledge, and I know that it's really helped Ollie in his sales journey to be able to go in with confidence, and kind of really sell that story to that whoever that person may be, I think it's kind of given them the power and
it's over the line.
To get us over the line. Exactly. Yeah,
absolutely.
We didn't have the budget to go on it ourselves, sadly.
Well, you need to invest back in yourself when there's the opportunity. Once people buy a little bit more cider, not that I'm really advocating cider as being something only for the summer weather, but the lovely weather that we are having at the moment is possibly contributing to a little bit of an uplift in sales. In fact, if you go on the courses, you can see how there are many styles of cider that befit the winter time as well.
Yeah.
It's not just that summery occasion. So looking ahead to the future, what do you hope or envisage for cider in London, I suppose, and for yourselves for the Real Ale company? What's the sort of next step for cider, do you think?
For us personally, I think growing the Crafty Apple brand is a real focus. Perhaps working with some other distribution partners to push it further afield. We are very, very London centric. We've tried to push it into other cities, but logistically and financially it was too difficult for us to do single-handedly. So we'd like to look at partnerships with small businesses. We're not interested in the kind of big guys, although they do a good job. It's not for us. So I think probably that, and looking to
I think moving more into sort of the festival event side of things as well. High volume sales, which is always good. For me, that's a personal interest, and I think it is for Al as well. So obviously the pub trade is our bread and butter, but just to have another leg would be really interesting, I think, for us. And
yeah, for sure. And actually, when we get customers come into the tap room, which having a tap room was something that we both wanted, when the opportunity came to us to kind of snag this venue in Walthamstow, we were so grateful, and I think we'd like to sort of replicate that, have another venue elsewhere. It's been really lovely to see people come in and say, I'll have a lager, and we say, why don't you try cider? I don't like cider. No, don't like cider. Why don't you try my cider? And then honestly, like 5 pints deep, and they are a cider drinker for life. So
this is it. It's those positive cider experiences, isn't it?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and giving them the right stuff. There is no point giving somebody a pint of 6% scrumpy when they say they don't like cider. Like, give them the right thing.
They're constantly pleasantly surprised when you give them a drink, aren't they?
They always.
Oh, that's nice. That's a common one.
Always.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Shocked.
And in terms of your obviously you're able to sort of see who's drinking cider when they come to your tap room, a little more challenging to understand who the consumers are in the venues that you supply. Do you get a sense or a feel that it's different to the consumers of the breweries either side of you? Is there any differentiation in terms of masculinity or femininity of people who are coming in, or it's just quite interesting? Cider prides itself on being a community of a friendly community of makers. I'm not necessarily sure that I really have a full grip on what the community of cider drinkers really looks like. You would have a better insight than me.
It's a real mix, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. Like, you get guys come in going, oh, I'll have a pint of, and you honestly think they're about to say lager, and they go, mango cider, and you're like, what? That guy?
Slushy.
I'll have a
slushy. Yeah,
those. That's our newest investment, is a slushy machine, which has been fantastically popular. So actually,
I think when you look at the analytics on Instagram, I think it's predominantly more women that follow us, but I mean, that could mean anything.
Might be because we're women.
Well, exactly. But it's probably like 60-40, something like that. But I think from people coming in the tap room, I think it's so mixed. I think we definitely do have this problem with summer's a cider drink, and it definitely would. I think a lot, maybe more men would drink beer in the winter, maybe. But I think it's quite equal, to be honest, across the board.
Yeah, I think young people really love a cider, like a sort of young female, maybe kind of, 18 to sort of 30. They seem to really hammer, crafty apple pints, a lot of the flavour, crafty rhubarb, which is our other product. They love that as well. So, but yeah, absolutely. You get the 60-year-old blokes coming in, and they'll smash through the flavoured ciders as well.
Definitely.
So, yeah, it's
which is lovely to see, because it's not. There's no, it's great to see everything.
There's no rules.
There's no rules.
For me, it's also it's cider's great advantage. Although the likes of these trees, these orchards, the apples from Herefordshire are high tannin and all these kinds of things, those are great, but they don't have to define all that what cider is. Cider's made from dessert, from eating apples, light and crisp and fresh. Those that have done a natural sparkle or still, bone dry, which is how the majority of ciders start their life, or with quite a high degree of sweetness with the addition of other flavors. I do like to say that there is a cider for everybody. I suppose it's just giving people the opportunity to trial and to have a go. And I think you mentioned earlier on, it's that qualification process of somebody being willing to try a cider, but maybe you'll only get like one shot to give them a sip of the right cider. Because if they go, oh no, I don't like that, so I don't like cider, I'll give it bye. So that sort of qualifying process must be quite important in terms of teeing up the right liquid for the right drinker.
Definitely.
is. I've got to say, it's very, very rare for anybody to say they don't like it.
Crafty apple.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's such a winner, isn't it? For a drink, it's essentially fizzy apple juice. You can't not like it.
Cider.
Yeah, but I think that's why having the range in the tap room is so important. You know, having the range of bag-in boxes, so that, because we do get people come in who will try crafty and they'll go, that is a bit sweet. Have you got something, you know, I prefer a drier, and you're like, all right, the challenge has been set. It's quite nice actually, isn't it? Because then you're like, right, well, let's crack.
Got the choice, yeah.
Let's crack this bad boy open, and then you know, before you know it, they're you know, a few pints of Turner's russet deep and cry.
Do you know what? I think the beauty of us being a distributor as well and having loads of different choice right behind us, which we can bring into the bar, is perfect. So we get locals that come every single weekend. It just enables us to offer them something different every time.
And we should mention the flights that we do.
We do flights of cider, which is great. People can have five different ones, which look fantastic for photography, for social media, because you get this really lovely range of colours.
We're the only bar in all of London that I know of that offer, you know, 5 different, very, very different, you know, different ciders and perries as well. Yes, gives people.
Well, just, you know, you are in a significant minority of bars that specialize, if not exclusively, cider. Given London is however many millions of people, for there to be, you literally count on your hand the number of sort of cider focused venues that there are. Do you see that changing within the next period of time? Do you think that cider has the potential to gain enough, you know, gravitas and awareness that they'll never be approaching what there is for full craft beer, and maybe even not for wine or even natural wine? But do you think there could be a bit of a cider thing like on the horizon?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think it's
definitely.
I think it's coming for us faster than you think. Just based on the amount of inquiries that we get. If I think about like the interactions that we get on social media, just the emails that land in my inbox saying, I need a good cider, you know.
I've heard about you.
I've heard, yeah.
Word of mouth, yeah.
And I think actually a lot of it for buyers, they don't know where to go because there are so few businesses doing what we do. And it was completely by chance. It was a happy accident that we created what we did. We didn't do it because we saw a gap in the market. And yeah, we are pretty much the only people in London doing what we do. So I think people also don't know where to go if they don't know us, and therefore end up selling substandard products. But I think with improved branding and, you know, a bit of confident branding and marketing choices by cider makers, I really think it can go the extra mile.
It'd be nice to see some more cider tap rooms or cider bars. It's obviously we're a distributor, so for us it just made sense for us to have a tap room connected to our big list of booze that we have. But other than that, I think it's obviously either cider makers, whereas there's, you know, over 400 breweries in London, so that's why you see so many tap rooms that are, you know, beer focused. So definitely would be nice to see some more.
I think in answer to your question, yes, but it's a slow boil burn.
I mean, I suppose we're all staking our careers on the fact that more people will be wanting to drink more cider.
Exactly.
So let's drink more cider.
Exactly.
Let's keep it positive. I suppose just before we wrap up, a shout out for you for cider makers that you think are either making a great liquid and or kind of making a difference to cider's sort of greater awareness and appreciation.
Ooh, there are a few. Who have I been particularly struck by recently? I think Luke does some really cool stuff. So Luke of Luke's Cider, he's a one-man band.
Nightingales for me.
Yeah, Sam's branding's really cool.
Yeah.
He's done some great stuff, and he took the plunge with the 440s, which was really cool because that's a bit of the risk.
And their branding with the 750s as well, I think is spot on.
Agreed. And Susanna and James at Little Pomona, I think their stuff looks really smart, really fun.
It's often a lot of the producers that are producing the 750s, because there's something about those 750 labels that are sexy, something you can't quite get on a keg badge or a bib badge.
Sure.
For me,
that big bottle format, you know, provides it is all about an experience. You're sharing it with friends. You're sipping it. You're having it with a meal. You're really reading into the label. It's not that there's anything wrong with having a pint or cracking open a can and getting on with it.
No,
but
it's just a bit
yeah,
slow.
it's a bit more of an experience, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Definitely. And obviously with Felix Nash, he is doing wonderful stuff. Obviously he's not a maker himself, but within the cider industry, always love what he does with the fine cider company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's an exciting world to be working in. We feel happy and privileged, don't we?
We do.
I will just echo that as we end, that to be able, for all the challenges that do come with cider, to be able to really try to be actually affect change and to try and make a difference for cider, and then that's cider makers, and that's apple growers, and that's, you know, rural areas. You know, it's contributing towards something that has a lot of opportunity, but as you say, it's a lot of fun as well. So it's I feel very privileged to be working in this industry.
I think the fun aspect is definitely, for me, in terms of the branding. When I first started working with Al, obviously her branding was already fantastic, but I just wanted to make sure that we created a brand rather than it be a distribution business. And I wanted it to be a fun brand that people wanted to work with, that was cool, people wanted to be part of, like a culture. So hopefully I bring a bit of that through our branding and through Crafty Apple as well, for now and going forward.
Yes. Amazing. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up there. Al, Ish, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time talking to me on this recording for the Drinks Trust newsletter. I hope everybody who's been watching has learned a little bit more about cider. Obviously, if you get the opportunity, head down to the Real Al Tap Room down in Walthamstow on weekends. It's a great fun place to be. Do also go and attend the London Cider Club last Thursday of every month. If you're interested in learning more about the courses that I run, head to theciderologist.com. You'll find all the information there. But most importantly, get out there, go to a pub, go to a bar, enjoy a very nice cold cider in the sunshine, or take it back home. And if it's a little cooler, that's fine as well. But explore the amazing range of ciders that there are out there, so that you can help our little industry grow and to support hospitality all the more. So thanks very much once again, Ish, Al.
Thanks
Awesome
for having
to see you.
us.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
everybody. Have a good one.
See you later.
Bye.